The Predator is the movie related to the title. So we'll see.
I haven't seen the new Terminator either.
Genesis, I've not.
Oh, I haven't either. So who's the main star of that?
I don't know.
Of which one?
The new Predator. I mean,
Yeah,
the new
did you say-
Terminator.
I don't. So what are we calling? Are you really calling it Predator?
We can.
The Postman. Then we could dive like that was
Ooh, we can
that was pretty painful to watch. That
Wasn't that with Kevin Costner?
yeah, it was painful to watch.
I didn't see that.
Don't.
I haven't seen
Kevin Costner had some major flops. He really did.
My favorite movie is Waterworld.
That's the one that destroyed his career.
Yeah.
But that was like the best movie out of most of like the last one.
You didn't like
epic
Dances
movies.
with
Yeah.
Wolves?
God, one
Well,
time I can't watch.
It was popular. It maybe was kind of goofy, but it was popular.
Which one, Waterworld?
No,
Dances
Dances
with
with Wolves.
Well, you had the Postman, you had Tombstone, you had all those like huge ones. His best movies were all sports movies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tin Cup.
Tin Cup. He did pretty good. Did you see Hidden Figures? He did a pretty good job in Hidden Figures.
He was in Message in a Bottle, which was terrible.
What are we talking about?
Kevin Costner.
Oh, I want to see Hidden Figures.
It's really good. It's a really good movie.
What do we call the project?
I'm a NASA nut, so I haven't called it anything yet. Let's see.
I'm still trying to figure out, are you doing a single view application?
I'm going to call it Postmaster.
So this
I'm
is
going
a
to
new
avoid the
project.
Predator thing. Yeah, it's a single view
Single
application.
view. Postmaster.
Yeah.
Use core data.
No,
Please
because,
don't do this to us.
dude, we're getting our data off of our web server. We don't need core
Get
data.
repository.
Get repository, yes.
No.
That joke's
Please.
By the way, your assignment that you submitted was 62 megs or something like that. So I don't know. I didn't look at the folder structure or
I
anything
did
like
not have Git repository unless the computer at home. I made sure it was not checked.
that. Okay. That's weird. It
Did
was
it
so big.
submit?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, it never. It
I
never
graded
actually
it.
told me. I told you it was like 62 megs. It never submitted.
You don't even know what to create it.
No, because remember when we watched them, like I got annoyed after 5 minutes and just closed the window.
All right. So yeah, single view application. I'm calling
I'm
it
telling you that
Postmaster.
home computer don't have a screen.
Yeah, but you did that here.
That one? No, that's a project I started at home. I make sure that the Git repository is not checked. So if it did it, I'm double looking.
So a little bit of like a sideline, information-wise, with regard to Node. With Node, now that you have it installed, and you can install it on whatever you have at home too. It doesn't have to be a Mac, it can be Windows. But Node is a really, really handy. You can create your own web servers. You can write your own all kinds of stuff. And the nice thing is, if you've done web development, because you guys have done some JavaScript, right? So Node is all JavaScript based. You can write. It's the only web server really that is. It's all based in JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, you can write web APIs and stuff like that using Node. It's very handy. It's kind of like the up and coming thing. Node is really catching on in industry now. So, all right. So enough about Node, I guess. What we'll do is we need to create I think the best thing to do would be to create a class that's going to represent. It'll be like a service that's going to interact with our API. Hang on just a second.
We're going to add a Cocoa Touch class.
Yeah. Hang on just a second here. I had some sample code I wanted to look at. All right. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to go. We'll work from the bottom up. The only problem with doing it this way is that you don't get a lot of visual feedback right away. But I guess we can go and we can create our stuff in the storyboard, and that'll give you an idea of what at least how it's going to work. Okay, so let's go in the storyboard.
Not create a class?
Don't create a class yet. We'll do the storyboard first. So we have our view controller class, just like always. Come on, baby. Oh my gosh. All right. Painful. There it is. I mean, it doesn't get much more basic than this. All right. So let's bring a label out and drop it on your storyboard view controller. We'll call this, I'm going to have the title
means for, what do you want us to put, just the text box?
label.
A label, label,
Label, sorry.
label.
And we're gonna need a few more, so the trick to do the copy is to press the Alt key and then drag with the mouse. And then release. And this will be company.
That didn't work.
No, it moved it.
There we go.
Yeah, you have to make sure you let go of the mouse before the Alt key.
So the first one should be
Title.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I hit the Shift key, no wonder.
I pressed backspace and it deleted them both.
Nice.
Don't do that.
I don't know what happened.
I'll
So
have
we want
year,
we want a third one to be,
Actor.
title, company, year, and actor. Yeah, actor is the last one.
Is it supposed to say view controller? I think I deleted something. I definitely did.
How does trigger? Trigger
No, I
label.
can't. It goes down to the bottom, I deleted something. I deleted my view. I pressed backspace 3 times apparently.
I have done that before.
I completely. So okay. Let me see what you have.
I got it back by pressing undo
Oh,
like 5
okay.
times, but
All
I
right.
just need to catch up.
Yeah, good old Apple. They probably thought that was a useful feature. Yeah, if they had backspace a couple of times, let's just delete everything. That must be what they want.
Do we need to put a text box in there for?
Yeah, we'll need to put text boxes. So if you have all the labels, then we need to put the data entry fields. So text field. And let's see, title will need to be a little bit longer. And then you can use the same trick, the Alt drag, and that will allow you to copy the text fields. Year can be a little bit shorter.
I'm gonna have them all uniform.
That's
Well,
what-
as long as they're aligned, that's the main thing.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And actor. So the year's the only really short one.
I was thinking.
I've tried that a couple times, it hasn't end well.
Okay, so then let's use our assistant editor, because we gotta create outlets for these guys. And no results, that's okay. Make sure you have the view controller selected and then do the assistant editor.
Just the text fields, right?
Yeah. Just the text fields.
Going to name.
All right,
Why-
yeah.
oh,
So the text field, so you have the title text field.
What are we gonna name them?
Yeah, so
Like
I
text
mean,
title or?
yeah,
Title
TXT title would be good.
That's a UI text field, nothing change.
Oh, okay. What? What do you mean you couldn't find any information for the class called view controller? That's weird. I'll try that again. Maybe I have to build it. Yeah, if you have an error, might be you have to build. Gave me a weird error.
I'm speaking my language, Sean, everything gives me weird errors.
That's like I did a control drag from the text field to the view controller, and it's like I could not find any information on view controller. It's like what? That's
Sometimes
You created it.
sometimes like goes above it, and that happens to me. Like you actually, it shows that you went to the by the UI view controller rather than inside of it.
okay.
It says like it read in the bad spot. I've noticed that happens.
That must have been what happened.
I know that error. I've seen
So-
that one several times.
Can you figure out where I want this? It should be inside the class you created. Shouldn't be that hard to figure out. All right. So then we have TXT company.
You lost it.
Yeah. here. That's weird. All right, well, whatever. Yeah, I lost it. That's okay. I'll just bring another one
That's
up.
what happens when you try to resize it.
I'm having some anomalies tonight.
What?
It's Swift is mad at me because I entered the web world for a little bit there.
Destinations on the
It's probably running before your geocoder is running. I had that issue.
Okay, so once all the text fields are created, then we can actually, the next thing we'll probably want to do though is going to take us, well, no, let's do this. Let's put a button on here so we have a save button.
Time?
And we'll need to wire up an action for that button when you tap it. You don't have to make an outlet. You can just make an action for the save button. Name can be button save pressed. Type should be UI button.
An action.
Yep.
Does that need to be above muted or?
No. It can be anywhere in the code. It should probably be after the outlets, but aside from that, it doesn't matter.
But it can be above muted?
Yeah. And then lastly, we should probably have a text view that will allow them to see the post. Yeah, so down a ways in the control library, there's a text view class that displays multi-line text and stuff.
The text view?
Yeah. And we'll need to create an outlet for that guy too. And I'm going to call that TV posts.
Post, you said?
Yeah,
Posts.
posts. And then that should be all we need for controls. So now we actually need to create our class. First we'll do the post part because that's actually what we're doing that's different tonight. And then the get part will be pretty straightforward. So if you guys are ready, we can go ahead and...
Sure.
All right. So do a new file. Let's see. This can just be a Swift file. No, make it a Cocoa Touch. I'm sorry. Cocoa Touch. Drive from NS object. Call this the postman. Drive from NS object. Swift. And now that's a huge step forward for Apple. They actually used to just had an empty file with import UI kit and it didn't even create a class. Now at least they created a class skeleton for you. All right, so this is going to be the guy that's going to actually do, this is like a service that will interact with our API and the UI, so it sits in between the two. All right, so let's create a dictionary up here. Because when you're working with JSON, and JSON is everything ends up being a dictionary, so we'll call it dmovies. Because it's a dictionary of movies. And I'm lazy when it comes to typing. This will be an array of dictionaries. And then when you declare an array of dictionaries, you can't just use the generic dictionary type. You need to tell what type of stuff is in the dictionary. It's going to be keyed with a string and then a comma, and then after the string can be any. It's like a grab bag because we can have integers, we can have floats, we can have strings. And let's see, question mark. All right.
What's up with the other TV, like watching us rather than?
Oh, is it?
And I keep looking at like, it's like kind of creeping me out.
Hi, Adam. Is this back camera on? It's normally off, I think.
Well, normally you get double screen.
Yeah, I have to set it up so that it does that.
It doesn't bother me yet.
All right.
I like ignore that screen all the time, so I can't see
It's
it.
like you can't see over your monitor.
No, I'm always like this, or I'm like looking
And
at
if I
this.
could, then all I'd see is my bald head.
It's the JSON server watching. All right. Okay, so now we have that class variable that we're going to populate. So let's create a function. I'm going to give myself a little white space here. The name of the function will be make a post. Into this, so in the user interface, what we'll do is we'll accumulate all the text field strings and we'll create our dictionary. And then once we have it created, we're going to pass it into this make a post method. So we're going to have a variable that gets passed in, which will be the dictionary. It'll be the same type as the one we created above, dictionary, string any. Just like that. So after we create the dictionary in the user interface, we pass it into this guy, and then this is where we're going to formulate, we're going to convert it into JSON, and then from JSON it goes into data. NS data was the old version, now it's just data. And then we're going to make an HTTP request. All right, so first thing we do is create a JSON data object. And you have to use a try when you create JSON data objects. You can put a question mark after the try. And it's JSON serialization is the object. And it's .data. So the data is the JSON, what do we call it, new post? And then I think there's an overloaded version of this that just takes that. We don't need the writing options. All right. Then we need to create a URL. And that's going to be the URL to our local server. Let's see. I need string. That guy. I'm going to use the string option. And the URL is just HTTP. Oh, we may have to, yeah, we're going to have to, maybe not. We'll see. I was going to say we may have to add that NS app transport security thing in our info.plist, but because it's localhost, we might be able to get away without doing it. But I bet we probably will have to do it. 3000 is the port number. And slash, and then posts, just like we use for Postman.
And we don't need the relative to on there.
The what?
Relative to?
Mm-mm.
grabbed a thing that's.
Oh, I see. No, we're not doing a relative path. This is just going to be an absolute path. Okay, so that's our URL. Then, so that creates a URL that we then use in a request object. So all HTTP requests that make, whether it's a post or a GET, you need a request object. URL request. And we need the top one, the URL, and that is URL. And we need the exclamation point, apparently. Okay, so then there's a method name, a method property on the request. So that is request.method or HTTP method. Yep. Equals post, all caps. And then in order for this to work, this is a little gotcha, but you need to do a request dot add value. So what add value does is it adds header value. So kind of like in Postman, when we were adding key values to Postman, we have these headers. So this is the header for the response that we got back. So these are all the things that the server puts into the response object. It has like a unique identifier. So like if you go out on the internet and you're like doing all kinds of, you're browsing around, when you go from server to server to server, it creates these unique identifiers that basically creates a path that tracks you back to where you came from. So like when you have your cookie trail and stuff like that, or your breadcrumb trail, each request that you make has a unique identifier with it. And there's other stuff they set on it. But in our headers, we did this accept application JSON, so we need to set a header in our code as well. So that's done with add value. And the string, you'd think they'd have a predefined enumeration, but they don't. So you have to type it, application, and you gotta make sure you type it right or else it doesn't work. /JSON. And for HTTP header field, again, I would expect this to be an enumeration, but you have to type content-type. And the case is important too.
And it is capitalized.
Yep, it's mixed case. Okay, then we can say request.http body equals JSON data. All right, so the steps, we're creating JSON data, which is basically just a string formatted in JSON format. It's serialized. URL is obviously where we're posting to. Create the request from the URL, set the method, add the header value, set the body. So the body, of course, corresponds to like the body that we have over here. This is a get. So in our post, you don't have a body in a get. There's no body. Only in a post or a put or a patch. So in this case, our body looked like this. So when we're done in our code, we should have something that looks pretty much similar to that. So the HTTP body is set. And then once we have that, the last thing we have to do is actually send off our request. So we create a task, which is actually like an OS threading task, equals URL session dot shared. So this creates a singleton instance of a URL session dot data task with, and with is actually our request, although it's kind of misleading because it says URL as the parameter name, but it's actually it's a request object. And then we have the completion handler stuff that we're used to seeing now. the signature is data, comma, response, which is what comes back from the server, comma, error, if it's an error, in, so it's our completion block. And that's not what I wanted.
I hate when it
Nope.
does that.
Delete
Hit the
that.
A to B. Enter.
Yeah.
Apple being helpful.
Thanks, Apple. That's their best shot at being helpful. Okay, so in the in block, we have a guard statement. Let data equal to data. It's the goofiest syntax. It's really hard to grasp it, but that's the way they like to do it. Error equals nil. So what this is saying is this is the success condition. Data is not nil and error is nil. Else, in other words, one of those conditions is not valid. The data is either nil or the error is not nil. We'll print off the error so we can see what it was.
Oh, shoot.
To localize description. Okay, so what this weird syntax is doing, it's saying if the localized description is null or nil, that's what these guys are, then just put no data. Otherwise, print off the error. And then we hit return to get out of here because we don't have any data. So now we're down in the good parts of the condition where everything worked. So here we say let response JSON equal, this is the try syntax again with the question mark, JSON serialization. I'm really glad that they condensed a lot of this JSON serialization stuff. You used to have to do a do, guard, try, catch, blah, blah, blah. Now you just do this. Try with a question mark. Dot JSON object. And we will go with the top one. Data is what it's with. Reading options can just be probably empty. Yeah, we'll just do this. Empty options, but you do have to have something, so you need the empty array bracket. Okay, so now we do the goofy syntax one more time. If let response JSON equals response JSON as string any. So the response that they're going to send back is going to be basically the data that we inserted. So instead of having an array of dictionaries, it's just going to be a single array of strings. Do you not like string any? So yay, Apple. So they misguided you, misguided me. So if you put this, which is what they recommend, it gives you a straight up error. Change the exclamation point to a question mark. So it's an optional, and then it's all right. Okay, so now we have the if let. We can print it off so we can see what it was. Make sure it matches what we sent. Actually, this is response JSON. I put the wrong thing in here. That guy. Okay, so for right now, that's all we're going to have in here. Then down at the end, after the if and after this guy, so this curly I think matches the start of our task. Yep, it does. So after that curly, get a new line and put task.resume. Otherwise, nothing will happen. So when you run this, I think you guys have probably seen this already, where when it runs, you hit the task, this line here. You hit the task equals your session shared, and then it'll jump right down to the task.resume, and it doesn't fall into this because it fires off a background thread. This URL session.shared.data task fires off a background thread, continues on, and then eventually when it comes back from the HTTP post, then you get into the guardlet and all this good stuff. Okay, so we're actually at a point where, okay, so what do you guys want to do? We can get it to the point where we can actually make this call, but it's probably going to take another 20 minutes to get there, or we can just go into lab time. Entirely up to you.
You called me a loser.
Lab loser. I vote for lab.
All right,
Doesn't matter to me.
that's fine.
If we don't do it today, we're finishing it next week.
Yeah, so the last few weeks are pretty wide open because it was going to be just, like building a Pong game kind of thing. So instead of taking the whole time to build the Pong game, yeah, I got one missing curly somehow.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have an extra curly in mine, so
Yeah, we had to add one too.
All right.
you do.
Yeah, so instead of like taking 3 weeks to build the Pong game, we can just start on it and give you an idea of how to start with the game. This will finish up next week.
I won't be here next week, just giving you all heads up.
Okay.
Party time. Who's bringing the pizza? Who's bringing the beer?
Well,
Are you over
my aunt's bringing the slush, so
Oh, that's why you're not here.
we're gonna be in the dough.
Oh, nice.
Can you bring the slush?
Oh, it's gone like the second it
Plain
opens
slush?
up.
Orange brandy?
Whatever she makes, I'll take.
Amen.
She
Preach
makes
on.
she makes some really good rhubarb
Ooh, rhubarb
slush,
slush.
Oh.
but she doesn't have any rhubarb right now, so I'm guessing it'll be like strawberry or something.
Yeah, that's what we
I love rhubarb slush.
have orange.
So we can
strawberry.
close out all the postman and everything then?
Yeah, so yeah, if you guys want to do the lab time, then you can close down your web server, close out a postman, all that stuff.
Okay.
All right. I'm just gonna do.
Now it's time to put on my hat.
I'm gonna stop my recording.